The galaxy had moved on. Eons had passed since Earth burned, and its people, humans, were gone. Alien civilizations told stories of them, but those stories had turned into myths, then into warnings, and finally into bedtime tales. Children on distant worlds were told. Long ago there was a species called human. They were bold, dangerous, and too proud to kneel. But they destroyed themselves. Most no longer believed the stories. To them, Earth was just a dead planet, nothing more than rock and ash. Humanity was dust scattered in forgotten systems. But space had its own memory. Space kept secrets, and one secret refused to die. Far from the crowded trade routes, in the silence of uncharted space, a signal pulsed. It was weak, broken, and buried under waves of static. For ages, no one noticed, but the signal never stopped. It repeated the same rhythm again and again, like a heartbeat trapped in the dark. One day, a small alien survey ship picked it up. At first, the crew thought it was nothing unusual, just background noise. But when the youngest officer increased the volume, the cabin grew quiet. Beneath the hiss of static, something stirred. It was not random. It was deliberate. The officer leaned closer. Her eyes widened. "It sounds like words," she whispered. The others laughed nervously, but the sound unsettled them. They knew the stories. No one had heard a human voice in eons, yet this felt close. The ship's translator struggled, but after long minutes, the message broke through. A single line, repeated again and again, stretched across time. "We endure." The cabin froze. The crew exchanged uneasy glances. Everyone felt the weight of those words. They belonged to no empire, no council, no alien tongue. They belonged to the ghosts of Earth. The captain tried to steady his voice. "It is just an echo, a dead machine repeating an old phrase. Nothing more." But he didn't believe his own words. None of them did. For hours, the crew sat in silence, listening to the broken signal. It seemed impossible that such a message could survive through eons. Power cells should have faded, machines should have rusted. Yet the transmission was still alive, still speaking, still waiting. One engineer muttered, "If humans are gone, then who is speaking? What keeps this alive?" No one answered. The thought was too heavy to carry. They tried to shut down the comms, but the sound stayed inside their minds. Even with the speakers silent, the words seemed to echo in their ears. "We endure. We endure." The youngest officer finally broke the silence. "Maybe it's a warning. Maybe they left it for us to hear." Her words sent a chill through the cabin. Everyone had heard the old tales of human wars. Stories of small fleets that stood against massive armadas and still won. Stories of colonies that refused to surrender, even when fire rained from the skies. Humanity had always carried one trait above all else: defiance. If the signal was real, then perhaps that defiance still lived. The next cycles were restless. News of the discovery spread from ship to station, from station to world. First, no one believed it. But then more reports came. Other ships had picked up the same signal, repeating in the void. Slowly, the galaxy began to whisper. "The humans are speaking again." On council worlds, leaders argued. Some said it was only noise, a trick of old machines. Others believed it was something greater, something dangerous. If even a fragment of humanity survived, one elder warned, then everything we have built may fall. But curiosity burned stronger than fear. Explorers, smugglers, and scientists set their ships toward the direction of the signal. All wanted to be the first to see its source. All wanted to know if the old legends were true. Meanwhile, the original survey ship drifted closer to the region where the signal grew stronger. Each day, the words became clearer, louder. Sometimes the crew thought they heard more than one voice, as if shadows of other messages overlapped, fragments too broken to understand. The youngest officer listened night after night. She swore the voice was not just speaking. It was alive. It was waiting for someone to answer. Sleep became impossible. Each crew member dreamed of strange visions. A blue planet shining with oceans, a sky full of fire, and a figure standing in the ruins, shouting into the stars, "We endure." The captain considered turning back. But deep inside he knew it was too late. Once you heard the human voice, you could not ignore it. Once the words entered your heart, they would never leave. In the crowded marketplaces of the Orion Spur, merchants traded more than goods. They traded whispers. The humans left something behind. A station still orbits their dead world. Inside is the key to their return. Others scoffed. Foolishness, they said. Earth is dust. Humans are gone. But their laughter was weak, and their eyes betrayed fear. For in every empire, the memory of humanity was the same. They had been too fierce, too clever, too dangerous. They had fought until their enemies begged for peace. And then, instead of staying, they vanished. Now the echo of their voice had returned. Back on the survey ship, the signal reached its clearest point yet. The crew held their breath as the translator finally smoothed the distortion. The words filled the cabin like thunder, heavy and undeniable. We endure. The sound was not weak now. It was not broken. It was strong, alive, and filled with a promise. The crew stared into the dark of space, their hearts racing. For the first time in eons, the galaxy remembered what it had tried so hard to forget. Humanity was not silent. Humanity was not finished. And the signal still lingered, like a hand reaching out of the grave, reminding the stars of a truth too dangerous to ignore. We endure. The signal spread like fire across the galaxy. At first, it was only whispers between explorers and smugglers. But soon, great powers began to take notice. On distant worlds, leaders demanded answers. On trading stations, merchants repeated the story again and again. The humans are speaking again. Most did not want to believe it. For eons, the galaxy had been safe from human hands. Empires had grown without fear. Wars had been fought without whispers of Earth's wrath. Humanity had become a ghost, and ghosts were easier to control than flesh and blood. But now the ghost was awake, and even the strongest rulers felt unease. On the capital world of the Zelthar Dominion, the Grand Council gathered. It was a hall of crystal towers and burning light, where hundreds of species met to discuss matters of war and peace. That day, however, no other subject mattered. The chamber echoed with one word, human. The speaker of the council, a scaled being older than centuries, raised his claw for silence. You have all heard the reports. The signal is real. It is not one ship, not one station. It is everywhere, carried through the void. Old machines speak, and their tongue is human. We must decide. What is to be done? The chamber erupted in noise. A proud warlord slammed his fist against the table. Destroy it. Burn the source before it grows stronger. You remember the wars. Humans do not surrender. They fight like fire until nothing is left. If they return, none of us will be safe. An elder from the archive worlds shook her head. You speak from fear. We have no proof they live. What if the signal is only memory? A machine repeating itself for eternity? Do you suggest we waste fleets chasing ghosts? The warlord bared his teeth. Better to chase ghosts than face an army of the dead reborn. Others joined in, their voices clashing across the chamber. Some shouted for caution, others for swift violence. But among them were a few who spoke differently. A young delegate, her feathers bright with youth, rose to speak. Listen to yourselves. You fight over shadows. But what if this is not a threat? What if it is knowledge? The humans built things beyond our understanding. If their machines still endure after eons, then what else did they leave behind? Should we not learn instead of fear? Her words caused murmurs. Some nodded in agreement. Others scowled. The speaker tapped the crystal floor, silencing them again. We are divided. Half of you see danger. Half of you see opportunity. Both may be true. But make no mistake, the galaxy will not ignore this. Even if we choose silence, others will not. Explorers already follow the signal. Smugglers already search for its heart. If we do nothing, the truth will come without us. The council grew restless. Fear spread like a storm, for everyone in that hall remembered the same history. Humanity had been too bold, too dangerous. If even a spark of them remained, It could ignite war across 1,000 systems. In the shadows of the council chamber, spies from rival empires listened. Some carried messages back to their rulers. The humans may rise again. Already, fleets began to prepare, some for defense, some for conquest, some for the desperate hope of finding human relics before anyone else could. The council's debate dragged on for days. Each dawn brought new arguments. Each night brought more fear. The signal itself seemed to grow louder, as if mocking their confusion. At last, the speaker declared, "We will send watchers, quiet ships, hidden eyes. They will follow the signal to its source. If humans are truly gone, then we will know. If they remain, we must decide whether to welcome them or to strike first." The decision pleased no one, but it ended the shouting. Scouts were chosen from the bravest explorers. Their mission: to follow the voice of Earth into the dark, to find what still spoke after eons. While the council struggled, the common people of the galaxy spoke in their own way. On frontier stations, miners gathered around radios to hear the faint human voice. Farmers whispered to their children, "Once, long ago, there were giants among the stars, and maybe, just maybe, they will return." Some prayed to the humans as gods. Others cursed them as demons. But all listened, and all waited. Back on the survey ship, the first to hear the signal, the crew received word of the council's ruling. The captain stared at the message in silence. His crew looked to him, uneasy. The youngest officer whispered, "So they will watch. But what if watching is not enough? What if the humans are not waiting to be found? What if they are waiting to return?" Her words hung in the air like a shadow. No one dared answer. That night, as the ship drifted through the void, the signal flared again. For a brief moment, the words were clearer than ever before. "We endure. We return." The captain froze. That was new. The others gasped. The council did not know. The rest of the galaxy did not know. Only they had heard the new message. The humans were not only enduring, they were coming back. The galaxy had argued long enough. While councils talked and empires worried, others acted. The signal was growing stronger, calling out like a star that refused to die. Curiosity became hunger, and hunger turned into obsession. Whoever reached the source first would hold the truth and perhaps hold power. Among the first chosen was the same survey ship that had discovered the signal. This crew had no choice. Once you heard the human voice, you were tied to it forever. The captain did not ask for glory, and the crew did not want danger. Yet their names were written into history the moment the words, "We endure," touched their ears. Their ship was small, built for scanning empty systems, not surviving deep unknowns. Its hull was patched from past journeys, its engines tired, but its crew knew the path. They followed the signal through the void, deeper into the forgotten edges of space where no trade routes ran and no colonies thrived. Each day, the signal grew stronger. Each night, the crew felt the weight of it press into their minds. It was not simply sound. It was something alive, something that seemed to look back at whoever listened. The youngest officer, restless, spent hours listening. She swore she could hear more than the others. A second voice, maybe even a chorus. Sometimes she thought she heard crying. Other times, laughter. She did not tell the crew everything she heard. Some things were too heavy to share. The engineer grew uneasy. This is not natural. No signal should last this long. Power fades. Machines die. But this one grows stronger the closer we get. It's as if it wants us to come. The captain said nothing. But in the quiet of his cabin, he admitted the truth to himself. The signal was guiding them. It was not chance. It was a call. Their journey took them past broken places in the galaxy, remnants of wars long forgotten. They drifted by shattered stations, burned ships, even whole moons torn apart by weapons that no living empire still used. Yet none of those ruins carried a signal. Only one place did. One night cycle, as their ship passed through a graveyard of wrecks, the signal suddenly surged. The speakers filled with static so loud it shook the walls. Then, through the noise, the words came clear and sharp. "We endure. We return." The crew froze. It was no longer the faint whisper they first heard. It was strong, powerful, alive. The youngest officer's hands trembled. It's closer now. Much closer. The captain stared at the dark beyond the glass. His heart pounded. He had seen fleets destroyed, planets burned, armies scattered, but never had he felt such fear from mere words. As they pressed onward, more signs appeared. Strange beacons drifted in the void, built with designs no alien engineer could explain. Some still glowed faintly, though their surfaces were scarred by ages of dust and war. The crew dared not touch them, but every beacon pulsed with the same rhythm as the signal, like stepping stones left behind for anyone brave enough to follow. Humans made these, the engineer whispered. Even after eons, they still work. The crew exchanged nervous glances. If machines could last so long, what else might have survived? Weeks turned into months. Supplies grew thin, but the crew pressed on. Sleep came harder each night. Dreams turned strange, visions of Earth itself, a blue planet rising in memory. Oceans rolling, cities glowing, skies filled with ships, and always, a voice whispering from the ruins, "We endure." The youngest officer began to sketch what she saw. Her drawings filled pages. Faces of strange humans she had never met, symbols she did not understand. Sometimes her hands moved on their own, as if guided by the signal itself. The others feared for her sanity, but deep down they knew. She was only hearing what they were all trying to ignore. At last, their scanners detected something ahead. A cluster of structures orbiting in the silence. First, it looked like debris, but as they drew closer, the truth became clear. It was not debris. It was a station. Massive, ancient, scarred, yet still alive. Its surface gleamed with the faint glow of human design. Towers jutted into space like broken teeth, and shattered docks reached out like arms that once held fleets. The signal blared now, filling every corner of the ship, impossible to silence. The crew stood at the viewport, silent. This is it, the engineer whispered. The captain's jaw tightened. He had hoped the rumors were false, that the signal was nothing more than a lost machine. But now he faced the truth. Humans had left something behind, something that still waited. The youngest officer pressed her hand against the glass, staring at the dead but living station. Tears formed in her eyes, though she did not know why. It feels like it's watching us, like it's been waiting all this time for someone to come. The station loomed larger as they approached. Its lights flickered weakly, like an old heartbeat refusing to die. The docking gates were open, yawning wide, as though inviting them inside. Fear gripped every heart on that ship. To enter might mean death, but to turn back would mean never knowing the truth. The captain looked at his crew. Their eyes were filled with dread, but also with something else, curiosity. "Prepare the boarding team," he said at last. His voice shook, but his decision did not. "We are going in." The ship adjusted course. Engines flared. The docking clamps aligned with the ancient station's gates. A low groan filled the air as the metal doors began to respond, creaking open after eons of silence. The signal flared once more, louder than ever. And this time, the words were not just "we endure." They were clearer, sharper, like a voice waking from a long sleep. "Welcome back." The crew froze. For the first time in eons, the station had spoken, and humanity's shadow stirred once again. The station loomed before them, silent and massive, a relic from a forgotten age. Its metal bones stretched across the void like the remains of a giant. Yet, despite its scars and broken towers, faint lights still pulsed deep within. They flickered slowly, like the heartbeat of something that refused to die. The docking clamps connected with a heavy groan. For a moment, the crew held their breath. What if the doors refused to open? What if, after eons, the inside was only dust and silence? But then the gates shifted. Old gears turned, releasing a sound that echoed through the ship's walls. The doors cracked apart, opening into darkness. The captain gave the order. "Boarding party, prepare." His voice was steady, but his eyes betrayed unease. He knew the stories of humans as well as anyone. They were not like other species. They did not vanish quietly. If this was their creation, then it was no simple ruin. The boarding team stepped across the threshold. Their boots clanged against the metal floor of the forgotten station. A thin layer of dust rose, dancing in the glow of their lamps. The air was still, but breathable, as if the life systems had never truly shut down. The youngest officer looked around with wide eyes. She felt as though the walls themselves were watching. Every corridor seemed too alive for something so ancient. "It doesn't feel empty," she whispered. The engineer adjusted his scanner. "Power is still running. Minimal, but enough. Systems are alive, even after eons." His voice trembled. No alien machine could last this long. The corridors stretched before them, wide and cold, lined with human markings. Strange symbols glowed faintly on the walls. The crew could not read them, but they felt the weight of meaning. Each symbol seemed to whisper a story of battles fought, of triumphs and losses. One corridor led them to a vast chamber. The ceiling rose high, filled with hanging cables and dark screens. At the center stood a massive console, its surface dim but still alive. As the crew approached, the console flickered, and the chamber filled with a low hum. The captain froze. The words returned, clearer this time, as though the station had recognized them. "We endure." The voice was human, not synthetic, not broken. A voice filled with strength, echoing across the chamber. The youngest officer felt her heart race. She stepped forward, her hand brushing against the console. At her touch, the screens around the chamber lit up. One by one, holograms appeared, shimmering blue shapes of humans long gone. Men, women, children, faces etched with determination, stood before the aliens. Some looked weary, others fierce, but all carried the same fire in their eyes. They were not alive, not truly, yet the room felt as though it had filled with ghosts. The holograms spoke together, their voices uniting. "If you see this, then Earth has fallen, but humanity has not." The crew gasped. The captain's throat tightened. He had expected ruins, not voices. "Not this." The message continued. "We built this place not as a tomb, but as a memory. We are more than flesh. We are our will, our defiance, our stories. Let them live, even if we do not." The holograms shifted. Now the walls displayed visions of Earth. Oceans glittered beneath sunlight. Cities rose, shining with towers and ships. Children played under blue skies. Then, in an instant, fire consumed it all. Explosions tore across continents, and fleets burned in orbit. Humanity fell, but the voice continued. "We endure." The crew stood in silence, shaken by what they saw. For many, Earth had been only a rumor. To see it now, even in memory, was overwhelming. The youngest officer whispered, "It's beautiful and terrible." The engineer clenched his fists. "No empire I know could build such a memory. This is not history. This is a weapon. A reminder to all who watch." The holograms changed again. Now the screens showed maps of the galaxy. Red lights blinked across hundreds of systems. "Colonies," the captain muttered. They had spread so far. The voice returned. "We scattered. We survived. If Earth fell, humanity lived on. If the signal is found, know this: humanity is not gone. We are only waiting." The crew trembled. The galaxy had believed humans were extinct. But if the message was true, then human colonies still lingered, hidden across the stars, silent but alive. The chamber dimmed, leaving only one final message burning on the console. "To those who find this, remember us. Tell the stars we never died." The silence that followed was heavier than any battle. The crew stood motionless, each lost in thought. For the first time, the myths of humanity felt real. They were not monsters, not gods. They were something far more dangerous: survivors. The youngest officer wiped tears from her eyes. She did not understand why the message felt so personal, as if the humans were speaking to her alone. "They're not gone," she whispered. "They're waiting to come back." The captain turned to his crew. His voice was quiet, but the weight of his words struck deep. We cannot keep this secret. The Council must know. The galaxy must know. But even as he spoke, a thought gnawed at his mind. If they revealed this truth, what would happen? Would the galaxy unite in hope, or tear itself apart in fear? As they prepared to leave, the station lights flickered once more. The voice returned, softer now, almost like a whisper meant only for them. This is not the end. This is the beginning. The crew froze. None dared move. The captain finally spoke, his voice shaking. We've woken something. Something that has been waiting for longer than we can imagine. And as they stepped back toward their ship, the youngest officer looked over her shoulder one last time. In the glow of the fading holograms, she could almost swear she saw human eyes watching from the shadows. The crew returned to their ship shaken, yet unable to leave. The holograms of humans still burned in their minds. Their voices, their stories, their promise that humanity had not died. But as strong as those memories were, one thing remained unanswered. The signal was not just coming from the station walls. It was deeper, hidden, locked within the heart of the structure. Their scanners showed it clearly. Beneath layers of steel and forgotten passageways, there was a vault. The captain stood in the command deck, staring at the readings. Whatever is inside, he said, his voice heavy, is the true source of the signal. We must see it. Fear rippled through the crew. A vault meant secrets, and human secrets were never small. The boarding party returned, moving through long corridors. The deeper they went, the stranger the place became. The air felt heavier. Lights flickered in slow rhythm, like breaths in the dark. Symbols marked the walls, glowing faintly with human script none of them could read. Finally, they reached a massive sealed door. It stretched high above them, built of black steel that had not rusted despite eons. Across its surface were human words glowing like fire. The youngest officer traced her fingers across them, her voice trembling. It feels alive. The engineer scanned the door. Power runs through it still. This lock, it was never meant to fail. It was meant to wait. At their touch, the signal flared again, louder than before. The chamber shook with the sound of a human voice, calm yet unyielding. To those who reach this place, you stand at the edge of our memory. The crew froze, their hearts pounding. The voice continued. We knew our enemies. We knew they would try to erase us. That is why we left more than ruins. Inside this vault is what we were, and what we chose to become. To open it, you must choose as we did. The door displayed a panel of light, symbols shifting rapidly. The crew could not understand it, yet the youngest officer stepped forward as though guided. Her hands moved over the symbols, pressing them in a rhythm she did not know she remembered. The others watched in silence, too afraid to stop her. With a heavy groan, the vault began to open. The walls split apart, releasing a deep echo that traveled through the entire station. Dust fell, lights flickered, and the doors revealed what lay inside. The chamber beyond was vast, glowing with strange technology. Tall pillars lined the walls, each pulsing with faint blue light. At the center stood a sphere of crystal, suspended in the air, filled with swirling data. The crew stared in awe. It was not treasure. It was not weapons. It was something greater. The sphere activated. Human voices filled the chamber again, this time layered and endless, as though thousands spoke together. We are humanity. We are our history. We are our victories. We are our failures. If our bodies fall, our legacy remains. Holograms filled the chamber. Armies standing against impossible odds. Explorers carving paths through dark space. Families laughing beneath skies now gone. They saw humans building cities, tearing them down, and building them again, stronger. They saw chains broken, oppressors overthrown, and desperate stands where a single human voice cried out against fleets of enemies. The message thundered. We never stopped fighting. Even when Earth burned, we scattered to the stars. If you are watching this, know that our story is not finished. The youngest officer trembled. It's everything. All of them. Their whole history, their spirit. The engineer's voice shook. This isn't just memory. It's knowledge. Weapons, technology, maps. If someone takes this, they could rule the galaxy. The captain clenched his fists. He could feel the weight of choice pressing on him. This was no simple discovery. This was a weapon in itself, human legacy, stored not in machines, but in will. Then the voice grew softer. If you are not human and you stand here, then know this, we left this gift not only for ourselves, but for those who endure as we did. Take our story. Learn from it. But do not forget, it comes with a price. The lights dimmed. The final words struck like thunder. Humanity never dies. Humanity always returns. The chamber went silent. The crew stood motionless, their minds heavy with what they had witnessed. The youngest officer fell to her knees, overwhelmed. They wanted to be remembered, she whispered. Not as conquerors, not as myths, as survivors. The engineer shook his head. No empire can know of this. If they find this vault, they will use it for war. They will twist the legacy into weapons. The captain said nothing. His eyes were locked on the sphere, glowing faintly in the dark. He knew the engineer was right, but he also knew the truth was too big to hide. If the galaxy learned that humanity had left not ruins but a living memory, then everything would change. Borders would tremble, councils would argue, and fleets would prepare for war. But if they tried to keep it secret, someone else would find it. The signal was still calling. The station had awakened. The galaxy was already listening. As they turned to leave the vault, the youngest officer looked back at the sphere one last time. For a moment, she thought she saw faces in the swirling light. Faces of humans watching her, waiting. Their eyes were not angry, nor kind. They were simply enduring. She shivered. The voice of the vault still echoed in her mind. Humanity never dies. Humanity always returns.